All right. So this is the 10 minutes speaking. So let's get started. So what advice do you have for college graduate? So everyone to apply for a job at Solar City or to start or SpaceX. And then if it doesn't work for whatever reason, then the jobs or companies in that arena or just starting a company. Study engineering and you figure out how to design new things. Then reasonably easy to start a company. Usually there feel a lot of many people with you. Or sorry, business is quite it's a hard to start a company in by business because it's a capital intensive business. So maybe it's better to do something in solar power or if you're in cars. Because I kind of component supplier for cars or something like that. Most high quality degrees in business and physics. But SpaceX is the first venture into aerospace. How did you get their expertise to be the chief officer of a rocket ship company? Well, I do have a physics background. I have you as a foundation. And then I read books and talk to a lot of smart people. I started follow the trend. If you may happily say, you can think in terms of physics abroad of first principles. Which rather than reasoning by analogy, you can start to the most fundamental truths you can imagine and you reason from there. It's a good way to figure out if if it really makes sense or if it's what everybody else is doing. And if you kind of think that way, you can think that about everything. It's just our effort. But you trying to do something new is the best way to think. And the framework was developed by physicists to figure out quantitative things like quantum mechanics. So it's really a powerful method. What is the one thing that has surprised you about your life? Relatively as surprised about your whole things, honestly. That's really the best to be for any things this thing to happen, honestly. Um, yeah, I just I always wanted to be involved in technology. Um, and in fact, the reason was when I started the company back in '95 because I created in only a few internet companies and I couldn't get a job at any of them. Um, so I got a job at Snap and I sent my resume and I should hang out in the lobby, but was too shy to talk to anyone. And I was like, well, I guess I have to start a company because I can't get a job anywhere. Thank you. I wouldn't say I'm fearless. I feel quite strongly. But if the work we're doing, I think is important enough, then I just override the fear. So it's not that's thoughts I don't fear. I feel fear more stronger than it would like. I think also people tend to avoid risk on personal level. Just was thinking about doing a mortgage to pay and kids to support, and if you were deviate from your job, that well, how are you doing to feed your family and pay the rent? Okay, that's understandable. But let's say you're young and you're just coming out of college or coming out of high school or whatever. What do you risk? Stuff. I mean, this is certainly not in any kind of modern economy. It's easy to earn enough money just to live in somewhere and eat food. All the people what they are right off, mostly a fat fellow, I think. Should be less risk averse than whereas not much as risk. What is education like? Basically downloading data and algorithm into your brain, and It's amazing, actually amazingly bad in conventional education. So it should be a huge job. Like the more you can gamify the process of learning, um, the better. Accessible like exceptional courses because we're trying to figure out what does it all mean, like purpose of things. And I came to the conclusion that if we can't affirm the knowledge of the world, it can do things that span the scope and scale of consciousness. I think we're better able to ask the right questions and become more enlightened, and that's the only way forward. Enlightened and more enlightened. What drives you? What is it when you wake up in the morning to see a problem and you want to solve it? Um, thing that drives me is that I want to be able to think about the future and feel good about it. So we are doing what we can to help sure to be as good as possible. To describe what's likely to happen. And to look forward to the next day. Um, so that what really drives me. It's just trying to figure out how do we make sure things are great. And I'm gonna be so, and that's that underlying principle behind Tesla and SpaceX. Um, that's that I think is pretty important to accelerate the transition to sustainable generation and consumption of energy. It's inevitable, but it matters if that happens sooner or later. And success is about helping make make life multi-planetary and doing what we can to continue the dream of Apollo and ultimately make the contribution to life becoming multi-planetary. Let's talk a bit more about that. I think everyone is very interested that when you talk saying making life multi-planetary. Yeah, that's exciting. It is exciting. So what's your vision there? I think particularly for Americans, if you think like about the Americans as a nation or explorers, if you come here from other parts of the world, they choose to give up the unknown in the favor of the unknown. Um, so I think exploration, like the United States is the declaration of a human spirit of exploration, exploration, and so why it appeals to Americans so much. You know, you can see this when there's a civil tragedy and 7 people died, and that's terrible. But a lot of people die all the time. But why do we care so much? Because we're dreamed of exploration that's dying around with those people. That's why. But Tesla's and SOS would failed at the beginning. You thought? Yeah, sure. Really? Of course. Unless you put all your money in them, I expect to lose it. And well, technically, what I thought was, well, I can have money from PayPal. If I lose half of it, that's okay. But then of course the companies encounter difficulties, and then I have a choice of either like let the company die or put on money into the companies. And so we don't want to just put all money into companies. I have to borrow money from friends to pay living expenses. Not just looking just for evidence of exceptional ability. A message and a record of exceptional achievement, then it's likely that will continue into the future. Into the future. It really depends on the stakes. The stakes are high. If it's really important, then one should then overcome the fear and just do it anyway. Um, I just rise override the fear, but I feel the fear. It's not annoying. I wish I didn't. I wish I felt it less. I wish I felt it less. Alright, so this is the end of this time speaking for today, and see you again in the 30 minutes speaking and the 20 minutes speaking French.